Tonight on Frontline, a report on the bitter fruits of change in the former Soviet Union.
At least give him a carton of milk. He's an invalid.
They give us something abstract. Freedom, democracy, glasnost. But what are we supposed to do with that freedom?
Correspondent Hidrik Smith revisits the country he has chronicled over 2 decades.
2 years ago, we were so full of strength, energy, and plans, we thought we had only to take power and it would all work out.
Tonight, after Gorbachev's USSR,
with funding provided by the financial support of viewers like you and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. This is Frontline.
I first came to Russia 20 years ago as a reporter for the New York Times. For most of those years, this seemed a society frozen in time. But then, a few years ago, I witnessed the unbelievable. I was here then to shoot a series of films for public television. The transformation began with glasnost, folk singers on Moscow streets mocking the mighty, tasting the new freedom. A freer press, open political debates, and the right to assemble and to protest. Now I'm back. And the old system, the party, the union, the ideology, have all collapsed. And from the ruins, Russians must now forge a new society. New ways to make their economy work. New ways to relate to each other. I came to see what all this means to the daily lives of my old friends. I begin in Ivanovo, an industrial city 150 miles northeast of Moscow. My thoughts flash back to my first visit in 1989. I was secretly told I must visit the Vedensky Church, shut down by Stalin in the 1930s.
Верующие просят, чтобы им храм отдали.
Да, это закрытая церковь. Да. И сколько дней они там были? Четвертый день. Announcing a hunger strike from the 21st of March. We will neither eat nor drink until the opening of the Red Church. We're prepared to die for the motherland of the first Soviets. И здесь что сказали власти?
И власти нам сказали, нам они до этого сказали, что не мечтайте об этом здании.
When I left Ivanovo in 1989, the strike had ended after the city offered to talk. This winter, I came back to see Larissa and Rita on Christmas Eve.
Да, открытка.
Сколько храмов есть сейчас работающих?
Так, работающих 3, да? 3. Это 4-й открывается. Сегодня будет первая служба в 4-м храме.
The man who had opposed the hunger strikers was Anatoly Golovkov, then the communist mayor.
I wanted something different in that church, not services and rituals, but a museum, say, of church relics. Or someone had the idea of turning it into an organ recital hall. That's why I fought with them.
I've heard there's an interesting development in the family. His teenage daughter Katya tells me she plans to attend tonight's Christmas Eve Mass. For half a century, no services were held in this church. The priest has to teach the people unfamiliar rituals. I am struck by how many young people have come tonight.
В России без Бога жизни не было, нет и никогда и не будет. Правой рукой крестимся. Еще раз во имя Отца и Сына и Святаго Духа. Когда спать ложимся, благодарю Тебя за прошедший день. И когда к работе приступаем, благословение взять у Бога и кончили работу, поблагодарить Бога.
I didn't see my friends Larissa and Rita in the big church. They're here. They have moved on and reclaimed this chapel that has long been closed. Tonight, they are celebrating its first service. Russia's religious revival means more than ritual and worship. It is a renewal of Russian culture and tradition. It symbolizes the return of a people to their roots. Ironically, a return to Russia's roots offers poor nourishment for today's economic and political reforms. Pre-revolutionary Russia had little tradition of democracy and free enterprise. Modern Russia will have to invent itself. In the spring of 1989, I remember watching the man who defied the odds, Gorbachev. I watched him tentatively introducing democratic reforms to the First People's Congress. It was a time of euphoria. But Gorbachev was taking the country on an uncharted and perilous path. He was pushed to move even faster by young Democrats like Sergei Stankevich, a student of American democracy.
С просьбой пресечь антидемократическую практику, которая на этом съезде, к сожалению, входит в моду. Это возмутительно.
Sergei was a man of the people. After a Congress session, I walked with him to Pushkin Square, where a crowd had gathered to support radical reformers like Boris Yeltsin and Stankevich.
Ни в коем случае не шарахаться из стороны в сторону, чтобы никто не упал, чтобы никого мы не повредили. Никаких эксцессов. Теперь мне хотелось вот повредили.
This winter I revisited Sergei. He's a man in power today, a political advisor to President Yeltsin. He sports a double-breasted suit.
I remember very well that night after the first day of the Congress of People Deputies. We walked into the crowd. Do you mingle with the crowds now?
I also have to do it from time to time now, but it's tremendously difficult. I prefer not to take risks to go to the shops when people are standing in a lines. It's impossible already. But
what happens when you say it's impossible? What happens?
Well, I'm afraid that the discussion will be too sharp in that case.
Is it dangerous for you personally? Physically dangerous?
Yes, sometimes yes. Sometimes yes.
Can you give me an example? Have you had that happen?
No, I prefer not to make experiments.
This is the scene Sergei is avoiding. This is the famous Yeliseyevsky store, for years a food mecca for Muscovites. Only now their pilgrimage has turned bitter. After Yeltsin's government lifted price controls on most foodstuffs, prices shot up overnight, some as much as sixfold. Almost no one is buying. Everyone is angry.
До чего Россию добили? Ельцин с Горбачевым. Только они это сделали.
У меня жена того сама пекла, брала килограмм муки, делала печенье. А он, зараза, сделал 16 рублей муки. Что он хочет? Гражданскую войну? Будет она. Будет она.
Yeltsin hopes to put food on those shelves by freeing up prices. He reasons that if farmers earn more, they'll produce more. I wonder if this will work, and I think I know whom to talk to. In 1989, in the farming country near Yaroslavl, about 250 miles north of Moscow, I met Dmitry Starodubtsev, director of a 20,000-acre state farm. Starodubtsev was one of the best in the Soviet system. He was a smart, progressive manager who ran a successful farm. He was known as a rebel, a reformer, fighting the communist bureaucracy. His farm reminded me of a boarding school. Housing and food were provided. His people worked hard for him. Starodubtsev ruled his kingdom like a benevolent czar, and he lived like a country pasha. When I returned this winter, I found Starodubtsev feeling pressure from the Yeltsin government to break up and privatize his state farm. We began our visit with the ritual of the Russian banya. Starodubtsev, the old reformer, now worries that reform will pull the rug out from under him. Starodubtsev throws a royal dinner for me. Obviously, he didn't shop in Yeliseyevsky's. As we talk, I realize that Starodubtsev has become a defender of the old economics. With his socialist kingdom under assault, he has a lot to lose. He makes vicious attacks on Gorbachev, blaming him for ruining Russia.
Российская земля. Прах Горбачева в свои объятия не примет. Не примет. Он просто был агентом других государств.
Это очень сильно. Это значит СРУ?
Ну, английский журнал писал, что он был завербован в Англии.
One subject Starodubtsev avoids. His brother Vasily is in jail. He was one of the 8 leaders of the failed coup last August. The next morning, I asked Starodubtsev to take me to the farmers' market in town. I want to talk about prices. On the way, he admits that he and other state farm directors have gotten together to fix high prices on dairy products. He knows it's hurting people.
Это же государственное, все государственное, и они нам, наши же нам продают по 70 рублей. Мы заработали это лично, мы заработали все. Ихные колхозы, все, вы подождите, мы ихные колхозы, мы все же их восстанавливали. Так? Теперь этот же председатель колхоза нам сует по 70 рублей сметану. Это же наша, чисто наша кровная русская заработанная.
Мы колхозы монопольно установили вот эту цену.
Ну, все в какой-то степени верно.
Вот.
Это значит, что вы почти монополисты. Да. Картел.
В данном случае, да.
Да? Но это значит, это против свободных стен.
Так пока работает.
Starodubtsev and the other state farm directors are making a tidy profit from their price increases, but they're not moving more goods into the market. To protect their prices, they're keeping supplies scarce.